Hey guys, Jen here. I thought long and hard about which topic I wanted to do for this week, and I found one that I think is pretty interesting. I think you'll be interested in it too. Hint, hint, it has to do with neocons, everyone's favorite topic. So Bill Kristol, head neocon that we have right now at least, has started a new SuperPac called Defending Democracy Together. And this SuperPac is entirely headed by neocons like Bill, and it's not even hidden. There's Mona Charen, Linda Chavez, both neocons. The rest of the list, they're all neocons. Neocons have done very dangerous things to our country, and I'll get into that a bit more just to give some background if you don't know. But first, let's talk about some of the kind of subcategories of Defending Democracy Together. So under this umbrella, there's Republicans for the Rule of Law, and that essentially exists right now to protect Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation from political interference. There's the Becoming American Initiative, which aims to counter popular misconceptions about immigrants. There's Republicans Fighting Tariffs. There's Republicans Against Putin. And there's the Russia tweets, where you can search and analyze 3 million tweets by the Internet Research Agency, the so-called troll factory run by the Russian government to shape American politics. So if you aren't familiar with Bill Kristol, I think, in this case, some of those things sound good. We do want a good investigation under Robert Mueller. We do want immigration. We probably have differences of opinions with these neocons, of course. We do want restrictions on those tariffs that Donald Trump has put forth. So there are obviously areas where even conservatives, Democrats, whatever, can come together and agree on certain things. And what we can agree on is that Donald Trump is terrible, and a lot of the things he's enacted and done are absolutely terrible. But do we really want to be in bed with neocons in order to accomplish these things? And you'll see what I mean about liberals being in bed with these neocons a bit later on. First, let's talk about a little bit about the history of neocons, just because I want you to fully understand just how bad these people are. And if you don't yet have an understanding of neocons, or even if you do, I highly recommend Robbie Martin, the brother of Abby Martin's documentaries on neocons. It's wild. You'll learn a lot. It's really, really crazy. Definitely look that up. So I'm going to start by reading a little bit from this book, and it's called Neoconned Again. I highly recommend it. It has great people in it like Noam Chomsky and all that. But the section I'm going to read from is this one. It's called A Real Hijacking, The Neoconservative Fifth Column and the War in Iraq by Justin Raimondo. Many were baffled by the Bush administration's fixation on Iraq as the next target in our perpetual war on terrorism. After all, there was no proven link between Saddam and 9/11 or Iraq and the anthrax scare, no weapons of mass destruction. So why did the President of the United States go off on such a pronounced tangent, beating the war drums for Gulf War II? So it comes down to the neoconservative faction of the administration under George W. Bush, namely Bill Kristol of the Weekly Standard, who, with his sometime co-author Robert Kagan, very bad guy also, proclaimed in a famous article that the goal of American foreign policy must be benevolent world hegemony. Matthews, as in Chris Matthews, dolefully noted that the two of them write a regular column for the Washington Post pushing war with Iraq, as the rest of the neocon chorus dutifully shouted, "Amen." These neocons deny that there's anything such as a neocon agenda, which is absolutely insane. Kristol and his followers almost did walk out of the GOP to support war hawk John McCain, who from day one of the Kosovo War called for putting in American ground troops and whose blustering, bullying style perfectly embodies the neocon foreign policy. So think about all those liberals who were praising McCain recently, right? For years, Kristol and his gang has been clamoring for war not only with Iraq, but with the entire Arab Middle East. In the wake of 9/11, they seized their chance and took the offensive. The smoke had yet to clear from the site of the devastated World Trade Center when Kristol and a coterie of his fellow neocons signed an open letter to the president calling for the military occupation of not only Iraq, but also Syria, Iran, and much of the rest of the Middle East. Put that book down. So you can kind of get an idea of who these people are just by that. They saw their chance after 9/11 and took it. Really, part of the history that you need to know is that Irving Kristol, Bill Kristol's dad, was essentially the founder of these neocons, and that they constantly call for war, regime change, and, you know, America first. Just who cares what happens to anyone else? America rules the world, and that's it. So knowing the background about these people, and now that they have this Defending Democracy Together SuperPac, which now that the Weekly Standard is gone, this seems to be the next way that they're going to infiltrate political thought, politicians, whatever. And if you've looked at Bill Kristol's Twitter at all recently, then you've seen him cozying up with liberals. These never-Trumpers, as Bill Kristol is, have cozied up with liberals because they have one focus, and that's being anti-Trump. And liberals are happy to do it. So I was really, really alarmed. Obviously, the first thing you do when you look at these super PACs is see who their funders are. And I found that essentially the only funder that Defending Democracy Together has is Pierre Omidyar. He's the co-founder of eBay. He also funded and founded First Look Media, aka The Intercept. I mean, it's a very weird connection. Why is Pierre Omidyar funding Bill Kristol, of all people? Our fear of Trump has gotten so bad that these two people have connected, and that Omidyar is giving his money to these neocons. How does he not see the danger in that? It's not all about Donald Trump. You know, Donald Trump won't be president forever. I'm just really disturbed that Trump has clouded so many people's vision. It's wild to me. I don't have any answers. I don't know if Pierre Omidyar has alternative reasons for doing this, or if he really is just so scared of Trump that he's willing to put his money behind someone who helped lead us to the Iraq War and so many other wars, and wars we shouldn't be in. You know, Bill Kristol wants regime change in China. We want to go up against the most populated country in the world. Regime change in China. I mean, he's really pissed off that we're pulling out of Syria, that we're removing half of our troops from Afghanistan. I'm talking about Bill Kristol. I don't personally know Pierre Omidyar's response to this, but being anti-Trump is not enough. There are so many things that led us to where we are now. We forget because George W. Bush now passes candy to Michelle Obama how terrible he is, how he led us to war under false pretenses, partially orchestrated by these neocons like Bill Kristol. It makes me so angry. But when it got to George W. Bush, it became stronger than ever. After 9/11, it was just superpowered. And now, it's still there. I mean, these people did influence Barack Obama on his foreign policy. These people are anti-Trump now because as many faults as Trump has, he hasn't been as militaristically crazy as a lot of people would have been. And dare I say, Hillary Clinton. We wouldn't be pulling out of Syria right now if Hillary were president. Again, that's not to praise Trump at all. It's just a fact. So who's behind Defending Democracy Together? And this was a CNBC article. Defending Democracy Together was co-founded under a slew of longtime GOP operatives, including Bill Kristol, a Reagan and Bush administration veteran who was one of the right's most outspoken Trump critics. The extent of the organization's funding is unclear, yet a press release by the nonprofit Democracy Fund Voice, which is funded by Pierre Omidyar, says that it recently gave 2 grants to Defending Democracy Together. The first was in the amount of $1,000 over 1 year, and the other was for $500,000 for another full year. And I did look at Open Secrets, of course, for other funding trails I could follow for Defending Democracy Together, and there's zeros everywhere. It seems that in 2018 so far they haven't reported donations or spending. So I think it's probable that they just haven't had to yet, and that we'll get that information soon or over time, because this SuperPac was founded in January of this year, but it seems like now they're really just starting to ramp up. So Omidyar has a history of supporting anti-Trump initiatives, which makes sense. I mean, he has used a lot of his money, as I said, to fund First Look Media, $250 million, which is a nonprofit that publishes a number of online left-wing media publications, including The Intercept. And he pledged $100 million to fight so-called fake news and to support investigative journalism, and that's in 2017. So this guy who cares about fake news and cares about the kind of reporting that The Intercept does, is funding neocons. Why? I don't have the answer. I just want to know why. Let's get into Democracy Fund Voice a little bit. It's a 501c4 and a sister organization to Democracy Fund, also Pierre Omidyar's. And they funded it with $5 million in 2016. So they have now given part of that to this Bill Kristol SuperPac. As I said, I don't have answers. I just think it's a bad idea. And kind of my thoughts are summed up in this The Nation article by James Cardin. And he wrote this in September 2018, this year, but it doesn't have a direct relation to what I'm talking about now. But it's talking about the general trend of liberals hooking up with neocons. So this is just another kind of section of that. This Bill Kristol, who is now a liberal hero on Twitter and who's getting funded by people who are liberal, it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. So here's what Cardin says. By linking arms with the neocons in their opposition to Trump, liberal Democrats are effectively laundering the reputations of unapologetic war enthusiasts such as Kristol and David Frum, bad guy, and assisting them in whitewashing their records. Painfully learned and expensive lessons from the United States' ill-starred military adventures over the last decade and a half are now all but ignored by too many U.S. political and media elites. Still worse, the neocon Democratic Alliance crowds out space for the few remaining progressive, ethical realists in a party still dominated by the liberal hawks. With the midterms in sight, and another, which they're now past, and another presidential election cycle soon to follow, now seems the time for Democrats to make clear, finally, that there is no place in the party for neocon war hawks, that the liberal flirtation with, if not outright admiration for, folks like Max Boot, and Bill Kristol has gone too far, and to recognize that neocon influence will undercut efforts within the party by members and future members of Congress like Ro Khanna, Mark Pocan, Barbara Lee, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to fashion a sensible alternative to the unrestrained militarism that passes for American foreign policy today. In terms of policy, the alliance between liberal Democrats and neocons is already having an effect. They have made common cause with regard to the desirability of regime change in Syria and the undesirability of either peace with North Korea or détente between Russia and the West. And in so doing, they have helped to define these as mainstream positions. Think about that. These neocons, by being in bed with liberals and vice versa, are influencing what is thought of as mainstream positions. opposition to which results in swift marginalization and, more often than not, personal vilification. So essentially, these neocons are moving the Overton window on liberal thinking about military force that we should be using. By shunning a sensible, prudent, ethical foreign policy, one with roots stretching as far back as George Washington and John Q. Adams, in favor of what is essentially a policy of militarism run amok, liberals are demonstrating, in a phrase articulated long ago by Walter Lippmann and Charles Mertz, a boundless credulity and an untiring readiness to be gulled. Democrats, be warned. Embracing the neocons is not the way to oppose Mr. Trump. Doing so may instead pave the way for his re-election. So I'll be keeping an eye on this Defending Democracy Together. I'll be keeping an eye on Bill Kristol and all the other neocons, and I recommend you do as well. And we should press these liberals who are aligning with them. We should press the Pierre Omidyars of the world, these guys who are wealthy and just scared of Trump or whatever, or have nefarious reasons. Who knows? Why is this happening? Why are Democrats falling into this trap? And I do believe that by embracing neocons and neocon thinking, we will help pave the way for Trump's reelection. So this wasn't a very cheerful report. It really actually made me quite angry because of this DC cesspool that never seems to end, but it's important to shine a light on it. So I will talk to you later and update you soon on this topic. Bye-bye.